Second news story of the week. It's actually, well, three different stories, I think. And it is in the wake of this disastrous news that we've just been discussing, which is that there are signs that developers are kind of adjusting to this new reality and effectively taking control of their own destinies. And I guess, well, a kind of tangential to that is the idea of Saber Interactive. They've been sold off from the Embracer Group. It looks like there's a $500 million deal for them to exit the Embrace of Death, as it's been called, which is good. But kind of more positively, and is the concept that Toys for Bob, who are kind of swallowed up by Activision, weren't they repurposed into a Call of Duty support studio at some point?
Yeah.
Either way, they've gone independent, and it looks as though they're trying to set up some sort of deal with Microsoft. But effectively, this is a independent studio that wants to take control of its own destiny again and do the things that it loves. And similarly, we've seen that this week Remedy bought back the rights to Control 2, and I think another Project Condor from 505 Games, and they're free to partner with who they want to partner with that franchise or those games going forward, which I think is great. John, thoughts on this?
This is actually great news, all of this stuff. I'm really happy to see it. I mean, obviously there are challenges when going independent once again, but I think this is a good thing for the industry. I don't think Saber Interactive's going to have any trouble finding work at this point. They do awesome work, I would say. They have a lot of clients, and they have escaped the Embrace, which hopefully other studios can escape the Embrace as well before it's too late. We'll see.
Well, there's talk that they're on the cusp of selling Gearbox.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that was a big one for them, and I'm sure that would bring Embracer plenty of money to sell it, and Gearbox could live on, which it should. Toys for Bob, of course, I'd assume by working with Microsoft, they're talking about working on IP that Microsoft now owns, that Activision previously owned, which makes a lot of sense. And as you suggested, they are effectively escaping from the COD mines, which was my big concern for them.
COD mines.
I mean, that was kind of the issue with Activision, right? It's like they would just swallow up even successful studios and just like, you work on COD now, go make skins. Kind of, that's the vibe you got from a lot of this, and that was unfortunate.
Yes,
and they seem to be free. And then the 505 situation, I mean, that's not good for 505, obviously, but I'm happy that Remedy has those control. They have control of Control back. Control 2.
Well, that brings us on to a question from Dajarko, who asks, with news that Remedy have found a remedy for their loss of control over Control, how do the team think that Control 2 will be remedied by all this newfound control?
I mean, I think Control is a very successful game, and it was a very interesting one because I think it, after Quantum Break, where they spent a lot of time and money on the game and a lot of years of work, that Control was supposed to be a smaller title.
Right, yes.
And it was supposed to be like, be kind of efficient. Like, you can see aspects of it that are totally lifted from Quantum Break, and that's a good thing because Quantum Break had more or less solid shooting mechanics, and things like that. And it lifts like things like character models from it. And some environmental art probably too, and it's like it was like a good way to like get a new game concept out there and have it be cheaper, and then try and build success on the fact that it was cheap and still have good quality. And I think that is what I would love to see of them taking control of Control 2 again. Here would be them saying it's not going to be a bigger and better sequel like, I don't know, Die Harder or whatever it's called. It could just be like another. It could just be Stirb langsam. It could just be another. It could just be another game like that with just like some slight tweaks, and just like another great story. And then like with the usual Remedy flair. I would like for them to keep the game size the same, and then shop it around in that way. I don't know if they'd self-publish it. I don't know if they want to do that.
They've got a lot of opportunities with what they've done with Northlight in Alan Wake 2, because, when in your interview with them, when they talked about how they had to enhance Northlight for Alan Wake 2, it's like, well, we've got to go outdoors.
Right.
And, which presented a massive technical challenge, but that technical challenge has now been overcome, which means that Control 2 has more opportunities.
It does.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what I'd like to see from Remedy, I would like to see them grow out their quote-unquote, it's not a cinematic universe, but it is their gaming universe, connected properties. And, let's have the Remedy Avengers at some point,
Yeah, it makes actually a lot of sense.
All of those characters coming together in one game. Build it up across the years. It can take years, decades if needs be, but if the end point is, this mega conclusion to a specific storyline that brings all of these games together, I think that would be mega. It's never been done before in games as far as I can remember. Yes, that would be pretty awesome. John, any ideas?
Well, I think Control was the best new thing that Remedy has made. At the time of its release, it was the best thing I think they'd ever made. I think Control actually might be the best Remedy game from a pure game design and gameplay standpoint.
Right.
It's really smartly designed. It controls like a dream, and there's so many unique ideas in there, and it just feels like Remedy the game, if you will. Right? Alan Wake 2, I love Alan Wake 2, but I think the actual gameplay, the moment-to-moment gameplay experience is less good than Control, as it is more focused on telling a story and atmosphere, and there is room for that as well. So I'm extremely eager to see what they do now with Control 2, given that they've had a lot of critical success lately. And they've kind of become a critical darling, more so than before. I think people always loved and respected Remedy games, but there was this feeling around, like, Alan Wake was, people liked it, but it was known for kind of being a very repetitive game. Quantum Break, I loved Quantum Break, but a lot of people did not. And then they sort of reclaimed their name in a big way and have become really kind of almost like the game equivalent of an art house studio, where it's it's certainly, they're in the AAA space, I would say, but they feel connected somehow in a different way to the people, if you will. They're connected to the people.
Well, an interesting story is that I remember I was talking to Remedy one time about we were wanting to add Control to our benchmarking suite, and I asked them if there's any specific area of the game, repeatable part of the game, maybe a cutscene that we could use for a benchmark. And it's like, well, cutscenes, we didn't really concentrate on those because they cost a lot of money. And if you sort of step back and holistically look at what Control is, it's a masterpiece in resource allocation, in that, what they did with that game on the budget that they had was simply incredible. Simply incredible. Nobody looks at Control and thinks this isn't like a AAA experience, because it obviously is. But the constraints that were put in place when they actually created that game were, quite significant. Obviously, there were some strategic deals that, would have brought in revenue, the stuff like the NVIDIA stuff, for example,
Right.
But that paid off for players big time, because you've got one of the best ray-tracing showcases still of all time. So, yeah, I think that's an interesting example of how the games industry could evolve and how it doesn't necessarily need to be driven by the immersive narrative-driven stories that PlayStation Studios is known for. Just a thought.
Yeah. I love the Remedy model presented in that game.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
I mean, obviously they've had their recent financial statement as well, where they announced that 1.3 million copies of Alan Wake 2 sold so far, but the development costs still haven't been covered, which is a slight note for concern. But they didn't seem unduly perturbed by that. I guess they would see a longer tail for a Remedy style game across the years. I think Control's done something like 10 million at this point.
Yeah, it's like it being released on the amount of platforms it did, and then also having its long tail, because then it went from EGS to Steam at one point, and that was another basically rebirth of the game. Yeah. I definitely remember when covering that game, a lot of people were like, oh, it's on EGS, I'll wait.
And of course the PS5 and Xbox Series versions as well.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That kind of makes sense. So, there is some hope for optimism going forward based on these moves that we've seen. I think Remedy paid something like, was it 17 million euros to regain rights to those games? Not an insignificant amount of money, but, there it is.
Yeah. And they also have so much in the pipeline. We don't really know what this was. Did you call it Operation Condor? What did you call it?
I'm not sure. But that is a game that they are developing.
Yeah. They've got that, whatever that is. And they've apparently got Max Payne 1 and 2 remakes.
Yes.
And then Control 2. And then maybe Alan Wake 3 is somewhere in the future there. It seems like there's a lot.
It's a bit of a shame they can't buy the Max Payne rights back.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
Death Rally 2.
Do it.
What? We could add in the rally cars into the Remedy gaming universe.
I think they should. They belong there.
There could be a driving section in the Remedy Avengers game.